everyone, and welcome to Changing Perspectives. I've got a little surprise in store for you all today because I have got an amazing woman from over in Calgary in Canada. Her name is Alara Payten, and she has been on quite an amazing journey, a spiritual quest, if you like. Right up my street, as you all know. So I'm going to read out what bio there is I have of Alara so far, and it goes a little bit like this. It's Alara's 24 years of practice as a physical therapist under the name of Brenda Hope Gibbs, combined with the teachings and initiations gathered during her spiritual quests to Australia, Hawaii, and Peru. Wow! Supports her expertise as a sacred journey process facilitator, spiritual intuitive energy alchemist, and a community mother drum portal journey guide. My kind of lady. Wow. Lara. Okay. In Alara's individual work with women, her specialty is combining spiritual intuition and sacred heart wisdom to help women who are sick and tired of being a prisoner of their own past to make peace with the past so that they can reclaim their power and liberate their lives. Wow. Think about having an amazing guest on for your first guest, folks? She compassionately guides each woman to reclaim their authentic voice and their empowered choice. Welcome, Alara. Wowzers. That's some journey. That's some bio to have. How are you this evening?
I am so well and so delighted to be here with you, Michelle, and to be part of this whole process that's unfolding for all of us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you on my show. It's a pleasure to be sharing the journey that we're on as well with Family Ties. It's a roller coaster in itself, isn't it?
Indeed.
Okay, so with that thought, what inspired you to write your chapter, Beyond the Dark Veils of Depression, for the book Family Ties, What Binds Us Together and Tears Us Apart?
When you approached me about it, and I was in that hesitancy place of do I or don't I, do I or don't I, and as I was doing my own energy practices to feel down into my body what's true for me, what was truly appropriate for me, I got a yes. And moving beyond the fear, hesitancy for a variety of reasons to that place of, wow, you know, everyone's got a family in some shape or form, and everyone has things that have torn their family. In some families, shredded it. In some families, a tear that's been repaired, but nevertheless, they've experienced the tear. And in some way, shape, or form, families have things that bind them. So it's such a universal story. And how can we have world peace, community peace, if we don't find a way to have some reconciliation, healing, etc., in our own family?
Exactly, and I don't know about you, Alara, but for me, family is the most important thing. I was brought up in a family unit that firmly believed in that you stood by your family, that you promoted your family, you supported your family, everything. And but even then, our family got torn apart as well. And I think you're right. Most of us go through an experience somewhere along the line in family that a situation arises that tears us apart, and some of us can repair it and other years don't, and other families are completely bound together. It's an amazing wide spectrum when it comes to families. Would you agree?
Yes, and the definition of family goes beyond blood family. But we have different communities, and in those communities it's important for us, I believe, to find a way to be aware of what's going on for us personally. What storylines are we creating? Are we being part of the problem in a relationship schism, or are we being part of a possible solution? And knowing that I can only affect me directly, I can influence other people can influence me, but I have my own free will choice. That still how I'm coming to the relationship. What am I willing to lay on the table? What am I willing to lay down if I've taken up arms? You know, what am I willing to lay down and surrender to? And when I make a change in how I'm coming to a relationship, I have seen and known that what happens in the family dynamics can change. So I firmly believe it's never too late for us to take a stand for a reconciliation, a change, a shift in our family dynamics in our lives.
Yeah, exactly, and always being able to speak your own truth as well. Because I think going by what you're saying, that's exactly what you're saying. Is about having the power to stand in your own light and speak your own truth, and hopefully still be a united front throughout it all. And yeah, it's never too late when it comes to family reunions. I personally can totally wholeheartedly share there, because I never really had that much to do with my biological father until I picked up a message that it was time, and he passed away just before, well, beginning of July, just before my birthday, and it was obviously time just to make that peace before he passed on. So yeah, it's never too late to mend fixes within a family unit. It's having the courage to surrender and put down the arms and put down the barriers and just go,
yeah.
Fuck it, shit happens. Do you know what I mean? So
It's never too late, even when they're on the other side, because my father, I made peace with my father after his death. And a counselor helped me bring completion to that relationship, even though my father was not in the room, he wasn't even on the planet. And I was able to bring peace to that relationship.
This is it, because you can have spiritual family, whether they're up in the heavens above, or whether it's spiritual families where you've got a spiritual connection with someone in the physical plane. So it all depends. You can have there's a wide spectrum when it comes to family, I think.
And relationship happens whether we're in the room, on the other side, someone's on the other side of the veil. When we're in relationship, it doesn't matter if we're present physically.
That's right. I personally as well can share there, because I had an experience when my granddad passed away that I still was able to communicate with him even though he was on the other side. So yeah, profound moments that we can share with the world sometimes, just due to family connections. So I think the book's going to be quite a powerful tool for a lot of household names, I think. And it's amazing to have you share that journey with us. Absolutely amazing. Now, I see here that the next question is, what has your experience of depression been in your life? An amazing subject to touch on. I think it affects quite a lot of people across the globe. And I would love to hear your experiences and what happened to you, Alara.
Well, first of all, I was the daughter of a severely depressed father. My father was one of the nicest people in the world until he started descending into his depression. It turned out that he had seasonal affective disorder that got worse and worse as years go by. So during the winter, when there's not enough sun to stimulate the pineal gland coming through the eyes, his mood would change. And so during the winter, he got way more depressed than during the summer. But he also had post-traumatic stress disorder from serving on the front lines during World War II. He was part of the liberating forces that went through Holland and into Germany. He landed in later in June, not on D-Day, but a couple of weeks later, and he was on the front lines. I can't even imagine what he experienced. He didn't speak about it a lot, but Remembrance Day in November, oh my goodness, we just started to dread it because he would be so depressed by it. And then we go into the winter and into Christmas. Christmas just became like a nightmare in a way for our family because my dad would be so depressed. As the years went by, he eventually in the winter hibernated in the basement. We didn't even see him during the day. He would come out at night when the rest of us were sleeping because his depression made it impossible for him to connect with the world, including his family. I became more and more separated emotionally from my father. As an empath, I felt so much of his pain and I didn't know what to do with it. So I took on his burdens. I started to carry the burden of his sadness, his depression, his anger, his fear, and had no way to process that. And my father was not going for help. My mother encouraged him. She would make appointments for him at the doctor. He wouldn't show up. He did not go for help until his last couple of years of his life. He passed over from a stroke at the age of 66. And for the 2 years before his passing, he did go to a psychiatrist. He did get on medication. He did start to change. He started to soften how he'd been living field life. And interestingly enough, I also experienced increasing depression with seasonal affective disorder and unreconciled trauma from my past. And I did not go for help for quite some years. And it affected my children. It affected my marriage. And it was so interesting. Once I went into counseling for depression, anxiety. I was a rageaholic. When I went into counseling at 40, I found out that I had experienced sexual trauma from a grandfather as a young child, and it had happened to other people in my extended family, and I hadn't remembered it. I had encapsulated and pushed it down into my psyche because my inner child couldn't deal with it. So I started dealing with it when I was 40 and had psychologists and energy workers who helped me along that journey. And it was just so interesting to notice that as much as I hated my father sometimes for not going for help, in our society, where there's so much stigma around mental health issues, around emotional issues, around being vulnerable and authentically seen in our challenges, I too pushed away going for help. And I felt so guilty when I started to understand that I was doing to my own children what I was angry with my father for doing to me. And so, yeah, that's been my journey, to be affected in both ways, as the child and as the parent, as the wife, as the woman struggling in the world.
So it basically kind of rolled over from one generation to the next generation. Then it kind of pulled it through to the next generation, which repeated the cycle all over again then. So you've obviously recognized it and took it on board and done something with it, so it doesn't happen again for the next generation, I take it.
Yes, now there is some depression in my family, and it's out in the open, and it's talked about and recognized, and we're taking more and more ownership for the fact that everyone has something in their past. We can have the weirdest things for children to be traumatized by that no one else in the world would be traumatized by. I've learned that through my studies for my own self, for my own healing journey, and then the work I do professionally, that a child can have something happen and they create a story about it that no one else in the whole world would look at and say that's a trauma. But to the child, in that moment of their snapshot in time where they're looking through that little peephole as a 3-year-old, maybe even in utero, we make beliefs about ourselves in utero, and then we carry them through our life and wonder, why can't I go in the direction I want to with my life? I keep going left when I want to go right. And it's those little inner wounded children and teenagers that have not been seen, they've not been heard, they've not had their trauma brought to peace, and so they're running the show.
That's so true. When it comes to children, they've got a mind that's so full of imagination that they can write a book in themselves just with the stories that they have. And you're right, that's the whole thing about a mountain out of a molehill, isn't it? It starts off as something, the tiniest of things, that just grows into something really huge. But it's because of the trauma that affects the child, isn't it? Or the adult, but for children I think it ends up being so much bigger. And it's got to do with not being heard, not being understood as well. I think a lot of children are misunderstood and just not heard. So yeah, I totally
And
agree with
I
you.
think my experience is when the inner child has been seen and heard and their woundedness has been brought to completion, when something happens to us as an adult, the inner child has been, for me, brought back into the Sacred Heart. I do a lot of work with the Sacred Heart Circle wisdom and our own wisdom circle. And when my inner children get to be part of my wisdom, so they can be part of how I can be compassionate with the world, when they can connect with the inner child of an adult that I'm working with that has a traumatized child, they're part of the wisdom that I bring. They're part of that empathy. And when they, yeah, when they can bring their wisdom and they're not stuck in their pain, but they can go, oh, I can really connect with you. I can really see that wounded inner child in the adult sitting across from me, or on the Skype, when I'm doing Skype sessions. And it's been so empowering for me to have my inner children, which are underlying me. A wounded inner child underlies a wounded inner teenager, underlies a wounded inner adult, and I've always, every time for me or someone else, have followed the threads of where did the belief originate, it's usually before the age of 8.
Yes, it's in childhood, young childhood,
Yeah. And then it
definitely.
can get reinforced by what happens in our teenhood and our adulthood. But I have found that the root of a dysfunctional pattern has occurred in childhood.
That's so true. I've recognised that as well through the studies that I have done as a complementary therapist and spiritual healer teacher. So from that, I totally agree with you. It's going back to the root of the problem, and 9 times out of 10, it's when they're young. But when you think about it, when children are young, the first 3 years is the most massive impact of life they have. And then from the next 3 or 4 years after that is the next stage. So it's always about another stage, another stage. And the child never really leaves us. It's always inside us. So the inner child work is a very important factor for healing. And you'll find as well, I'm sure you'll agree, that when you're an adult and something happens to you, it triggers things in the mind of childhood and brings you right back to that moment, and you go, oh, that little child comes out to play and wants to cry and everything else and takes a temper tantrum. Would you agree that happens?
Yes, and I've learned to ask myself when I'm triggered. So when I'm triggered and I'm in reaction versus in witnessing, and I can be in response. Oh, I'm witnessing this. I'm staying in my wisdom. I'm staying in my center. Now, what's my response? That's different than going into reaction where I'm triggered, and I can ask myself, oh my goodness, how old do I feel? And if I'm in reaction, I have never yet felt the age that I am. I've always felt younger. And so then I can have sympathy or empathy for myself. Well, no wonder I'm feeling so triggered. I'm feeling 4 years old. I'm feeling 7 years old. And well, what am I making this to mean about me? Well, I'm making this to mean about me that I'm not safe, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or and all these different beliefs.
That rogue in the attic coming out to play, isn't it? Going, you can't do this. It's that whole childlike thing in the background going,
Yes. And so when I could recognize that we're multi-faceted beings, I'm not a one-flavored woman. No one has one persona. We're a mixture of every snapshot of time where we've experienced something, we've gone click, and we've taken a picture, and then we've created a belief around that picture. And when those pictures are outdated and I'm making decisions now from a 4-year-old's perspective, then I can realize, well, no wonder I'm not going in the direction I want. I'm making decisions from that 4-year-old that's feeling unsafe or whatever. And I just wanted to mention, for me, it's not about excavating the past. I don't believe I have to go and dig up everything in my past. What's happening in the moment that is disempowering me, or I'm triggered by, or I say I want one thing, but I keep getting another, to me that's a clue. Oh, there's something that's knocking on the psyche, my psyche, that's saying, can you please pay attention to me? I have something for you. To me,
yeah, it's about awareness, isn't it?
Yeah, they're the inner child's-bearing gifts of awareness. And so when I started to realize it's not about having to go back and be re-traumatized and relive the trauma. No, no, no. There are ways to be present to what's occurred and ways to bring it to healing, to completion, to gain all the gifts from it and bring it into peace and harmony. And as part of our empowerment.
Exactly. Exactly. Ah, I think that's really well said. I enjoyed that. So, what message do you want people to take away from reading your chapter?
I'd like them to know it's okay. Where you're at, it's okay. It's part of your journey. And it's okay to reach out for help. It's okay to recognize when your own resources that you have aren't enough. And that everybody has moments in life where they cannot find their own way out of their own maze and they need help. And as I started to realize that leaders in business and in governments, they have advisors. They're not trying to do it all on their own. That the lone wolf syndrome, you know, there's a place to be on our own. There's time for that. And when we're having challenges that we cannot overcome on our own for whatever reason, then I'm encouraging the readers to get the help they need, because it doesn't just affect them when they don't, it affects their loved ones. And I believe that all deserve to return to our own power, to take ownership of our own self, to be our own sovereign beings, and to create lives that are full of meaning and full of meaning, you know, whatever that is for us, that are fulfilling lives where we're not stuck in old patterns of behavior for years and decades and traumatizing ourselves and traumatizing our loved ones and our communities. Our world, our family, our community needs us.
That's so true. So true. Yeah, definitely. It's about breaking the chain and just reaching out, isn't it? It's to say it's okay to reach out as well. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be hidden behind closed doors now. Get yourself out there and be seen. It's okay. So I totally agree with you there. Absolutely. I think your story is going to rock the world. I think it's going to be amazing because I personally know people who've experienced a very similar thing to what you're talking about. And it does affect their families, it does affect their children, and they, so even as an individual, they want to break that chain so it doesn't happen to their families. So I think people want to know your story, people want to know how you got through it, and I think that's a really great message you're putting out there to say, to reach out. Absolutely amazing. Now, Alara, I would like people to able to get in contact with you. Have you got anything, links or anything that you can tell everybody how to get in contact with you? How do they reach out to you, my darling?
They can connect with me at alarapayten.com, so www.alarapayten.com. They can connect with me through Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn by that profile name, Alara Payten. And they can connect with me by email at alara@alarapayten.com.
Excellent. That is amazing. For people watching here tonight, I'm going to put that links on underneath as well through the show, or underneath the posts that we place them on the social medias that we have. I will send them to you as well, Alara, for your website or anything as well. Absolutely amazing show tonight. Amazingly, I'm sure you'll all agree, Alara's an amazing guest to have on the show. What an inspiration to the world, sharing your great insight and your great wisdom with us all. Thank you, my darling.
You are most welcome. Thank you.
And all the best for Family Ties. When does that launch, my honey? Shall we tell them when that launches?
Yes. Let me see now. December 6th. December 6th, 2004. It's coming up fast.
I know. It's not long, is it? It's not far away now, actually. 6th of December it'll be launching, and I'm compiling it. And Alara Payten is one of our beautiful co-authors. I'm sure you all agree she is a beautiful soul, a great source of wisdom, and an amazing inspirational lady. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alara, for
Thank
taking
you.
time out of your day.
Blessings, everybody.
Blessings, everybody. Ah, bless you. Thank you, everybody. That is us finished for tonight, and we will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye from Changing Perspectives and from me, Michelle E. Wood.